phonograph records that you can take out just like books. We also have film programs on Saturday morning and story hours for the younger children. Sometimes we use puppets to act out the stories. As you can see, the library is a pretty wonderful place.
Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. We are pre-recording because I'm not here in the studio, even though I am in the studio. Sometimes I have a life outside of AV Geeks. It's rare, but today is one of those days. Anyways, today I want to show you some great films that we have, two of which are actually hosted by the Library of Congress, but we've done a lot of work with them over the years, and these are two wonderful films to highlight. So the first film we're going to watch is called Finding His Voice. It was made in 1929, and it features the animation of Max Fleischer of the Fleischer Brothers. And the Fleischer Brothers, of course, did Betty Boop and some amazing Popeyes and Superman cartoons, among other things. And you can also see that the filmmaker is Irpy, and Irpy had his own film company where they made educational films that were then acquired by Encyclopedia Britannica. And I always thought that Irpy was like an acronym for something. So like it represented like electronic research, photo something. No, it's somebody's name. So so Encyclopedia Britannica, when they decided that educational films were something they wanted to pursue, they purchased the Irpy Library and the Eastman Teaching Library and then rebranded them as Encyclopedia Britannica films. So this first film kind of explains the concept of motion picture sound, and it was made in 1929, which was pretty early in the process. And this details the patent that won, basically, which was Western Electric. There were lots of different variations on sound, including Vitaphone and some other things. But this is the one that kind of won. So enjoy.
Why, Muty, I am a new man. Haven't you heard about the wonderful thing Dr. Weston did for me? He kept up my post, gave me a set of vocal cords. You ought to see him. Take it from me, you'll never land a job the way you are. Let's go. Here we are.
Hello, Talkie. What's on your mind now?
Doc, my old friend Muty wants you to put him through the works.
Why, man, you still run on 60. We'll have to pep you up to 90. Open your mouth.
Yeah.
And no wonder you can't talk. You have no soundtrack. Come right along with me. Now, Talkie, let's put on an act for Muty and let him follow us through. Silence!
Just a calm at twilight, when the lights are low, and the flickering shadows softly come and go, though the heart be weary.
Now I'll explain. Inside this booth is a motion picture camera which is taking pictures through this window. We use a soundproof booth. When it's closed, it keeps the camera noise away from the microphone. The camera is operated by a motor which runs at exactly the same speed as the motor in the sound machine. Whew, it's hot in this booth. Let's get out on the set again, and I'll show you how the sound is picked up by the microphones on the stage. Sound waves are picked up by this wonderful mechanical ear, the microphone, which is really a glorified telephone transmitter. This microphone changes the sound waves into electrical vibrations, which are amplified here and sent along these wires to the mixer room. The sounds from the stage microphones are mixed here so that they sound natural for the action in the production. Mr. Mixer sees the actors through this window and hears them only through this horn. Now that we've got the sound right, I'll show you how it's amplified. Get ready. The power from the microphones is amplified about 10 million times by these vacuum tubes, making the voice current strong enough to operate the machine that photographs the sound. Do you follow me? This is the machine that is used to record the sound on film. This sound film is traveling at the same rate of speed as the picture film in the camera booth. The light valve has two thin metal strings stretched across this tiny slit. On one side of the slit is a strong light, while on the other is a film, moving at exactly the same speed as the picture camera in the studio. The greatly amplified voice currents passing through these tiny light valve strings move them closer together or further apart, thus changing the size of the slit. Therefore, the light varies as it passes through this rapidly changing opening, leaving a true photographic record of the voice currents on the film. Simple, isn't it? Huh? Now let's look at the films after they've been developed. Well, here we are. Here are our two negatives developed. The next step is to print these two negatives onto a third piece of film. We'll print the sound record first, and then the picture record. Here we have a completed sound print. We're now ready for projection. This is the picture and sound projector. One motor drives both the picture and sound equipment. You see? Let me illustrate this with a simple diagram. This lamp illuminates the soundtrack on the film. The light from the lamp passes through the slit, throwing a very narrow line of brilliant light on the soundtrack. As the film runs past this light, the marks on the soundtrack cause the light to increase and decrease. This light, in turn, causes the current through the photoelectric cell to increase and decrease, thus producing the electric vibration first created sound waves. The current from the photoelectric cell is pepped up by the amplifier, and then this amplified is carried by wires along through the theater and down to the screen on the stage to connect with the loudspeakers. This is a typical layout of the stage set with two horns behind the screen. The receivers connected to the horns convert the electrical vibrations back into sound waves exactly the way the telephone receiver operates, so that while the picture is being shown, the sound which was recorded is reproduced in step with the picture. The screen is full of small holes so that the horns may be placed behind the screen to let the sound through. This gives the illusion that the sound is coming from the image of the speaker. Talkie, there goes your cue. You're next on screen, while Muty can go try on his new voice.
Okay.
Just a song as white when
Whoopee! I found my voice! Ha, 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 ha. Let me into that machine.
No, you can't go on now. Tuffy's doing his stuff.
I can't, Professor. You just watch me. Wow! Take down, take down. What's the idea? Keep still, I said. Keep still. Just because you got a voice now, don't shout. Boy, I'm a Gazzarino. Wow! Whoa! Wait, don't boy. Look here, Smarty. If you must stay on the screen with me, suppose we get together with a little close harmony. What do you say? Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. We're going to leave you now. Merrily we roll along, roll along, roll along. Merrily we roll along o'er the deep blue sea. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. We're going home.
Yeah, I'll take a Fleischer Brother animated film any day. There's something about it I really, really like. The stylings and the just really phenomenal. This next film was made by NBC, National Broadcasting Company, back when they were just radio. And this is basically talking about everything that takes place behind the scenes to deliver a radio broadcast. So you get to see some of the aspects of production. You get to see a little bit of the technology. And this was made in 1947. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So enjoy.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
That sound is heard more often by more people than any other sound in America. Pulsing out from the transmitter tower into the tubes and coils behind your radio dial, whoever, wherever you may be. It's like a welcome knock on the door and the sound of the familiar voice of an old friend. The welcome voice of NBC speaks many languages, music, the crosstalk of forum and discussion. It speaks the clipped and colorful lingo of sport, the many hundred tongues and tones of drama. It speaks the language of laughter, the rippling idiom of comedy. And it tells the world of how the world spins with the voice of truth. These are voices of NBC today, versatile and modulated. But do you remember more than 20 years ago when radio was learning to talk? Secretary of State Charles Evans Hughes defended the Harding administration course on the League of Nations today when asked whether it wasn't time for the Republican Party to give the people an unequivocal statement in regard to its position on the World Court. He denied that its voice was a whisper crackling with static, and you stayed up till 3 scratching a crystal with a wire cat's whisker to log Pittsburgh 50 miles away. And then radio moved up from the cellar to the parlor, its earphones replaced by a handsome cone speaker, big enough for Dad to get his whole head in as he still tried for distance, maybe Cincinnati direct on a clear evening. But it was a magic night late in 1926 when Dad switched to his local station and found that it was linked by telephone lines to 19 other stations to form the National Broadcasting Company. The creation of this pioneer network meant that a broadcast originating from any of these affiliated stations could be heard clearly in the area served by all the others, and always at the same spot on Dad's dial. Now radio was going places, and NBC went with it, extending its network from coast to coast, spanning the nation, to bring the on-the-spot, play-by-play report of Graham McNamee describing the doings in Pasadena's sunny Rose Bowl to winter-bound listeners in New York. But millions of widely separated people were still to be turned into next-door neighbors. And so the cross-continental chain became a permanent web, and the web was woven into a fabric, and the fabric covers the nation, reaches up into Canada, across the Pacific, America's #1 network, more than 170 stations, independent community stations, of which only 6 are owned and operated by NBC. But to affiliates and key stations alike, the industry's focal point is in Radio City, the city within a city. Here at New York's Rockefeller Center is home site and hearth side for the NBC family. And here the welcome mat is laid out for over 500,000 visitors a year, friends from all over the world who've dropped in to see what goes on behind their radio dial. The NBC guides would have to be graduate engineers to answer all the questions that people ask on our regular tours about how a radio show is actually put on the air. That was a simpler story in the old days when this antique master control desk took only one man to operate. But today, it requires a whole team to man the panel board. From this room, programs all around the clock are routed over 16,000 miles of leased telephone lines to radio stations all over the nation. This is the nerve center of NBC. You know, what you hear on the air represents only a fraction of the effort that goes into network radio. The microphone doesn't pick up, for example, the sound of the teletypes in the communications department, which connect our key cities and handle the 3,000 messages a day which are necessary to bring your shows in on cue. You can't tune in on the traffic department either, but without it, no telling what you'd get. For on this board, every minute of the broadcast day is programmed weeks in advance to be constantly checked and rechecked for split-second transmission to the proper station. Our guests naturally always want to see some of the voices that they hear every day at home, so they usually stop in on a rehearsal studio. Here, behind a soundproof window, they can eavesdrop on a popular daytime serial, getting a final run-through before airtime.
Thank you, nurse.
Do you want me to stay, Doctor?
No, it won't be necessary, thank you, nurse.
Yes, Doctor.
Sit down, Mrs. Everett, please.
Well, Doctor, maybe you found out what's wrong with my husband. Maybe you can tell me about him. All those other doctors...
Gertrude, that's
Yeah.
swell. I liked your entry line. It was flat and it's good characterization. Now, I want to get two emotions in this last speech of yours. I want to feel on that line where you sit down that you're more nervous about entering a doctor's office. I think most people generally are. And also on the other line in that little sentence there, make sure that I have the feeling that you are concerned about your husband's health. It's very serious.
Oh, I see.
Is that clear?
Yes, I see.
Just those two emotions
All right.
in that sentence. All right, let's run that scene again from page 18 with the doctor's line. Sit down, Mrs. Everett, please. On cue now. All right.
Sit down, Mrs. Everett.
I guess people are more current events conscious these days because they always want to see the NBC newsroom and maybe catch a glimpse of the dean of commentators, Mr. Kaltenborn.
And that's the news picture as it looks in post-war Europe tonight. Confused enough to be sure, but certainly not altogether hopeless. Good night. Well, I've just helped turn another day over to history. But history has no clocks and has no calendars. And that's why NBC has provided a room where history can be recorded eternally. That's the newsroom. Let's visit it for a bit, shall we? All night and all day, every day in the year, these machines bring the world's news to NBC for processing. A bell signal will indicate that a really hot news story is on the wire. But usually, they just tick away the ordinary, everyday facts about the daily doings of humanity, scarcely pausing between stories on the national debt, the international crisis, and the National League. It is our job here to sift these facts, to analyze and evaluate them, bring them into focus with their background, and turn them into stories for radio's newspaper, the only newspaper which is perpetually going to press. Radio's magnificent job of reporting the news is a matter of record. Very little of note has occurred in the last 20 years that hasn't cut a groove in the wax of NBC's permanent transcription file. For radio is not just a thing of the moment. Reserved for all time in its archives are the sounds, the words that history made and spoke as they happened, while it was actually happening.
And there's the Winnie Mae now, winging her way in with a new world's record. Around the world in the record time of 8 days, 15 hours, and 15 minutes. The crowd's rushing out on the field to meet the ship as it taxis up the runway. And from where I am, I can't see Gatty, but that looks like Wiley Post now, getting out of the plane. I've got the NBC microphone through this crowd, and it just... Wiley, will you and Harold...
Still now they've dropped rope out of the nose of the ship, and the passenger proppers lining the windows looking down. It burst into flames.
Wait, get it started. It's crashing, and it's crashing terrible.
If I am elected President of the United States,
with confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
And from this room, NBC sent you its reports, hour by hour, and sometimes even minute by minute, on the greatest news story of all time, the Second World War. It followed the news wherever it went and sent back eyewitness accounts of the tide of global battle, sent back the actual sound made by a world coming apart at the seams. And so today, NBC News and Special Events, mindful of its obligation to keep America informed, has enlarged its facilities so that everyone in sound of a radio has his ear to the ground.
It is not intended to suspend the decision of the Security Council by an understanding that these answers have to be in before we act.
If you looked closely enough behind your radio dial, you would inevitably find people. At NBC, important people. In the mailroom, for instance, the clerks who handle the thousands of letters you write into us every day. More letters than are received in many a good-sized post office. And the people in the information department who see to it that every letter is answered. For modern network radio is more than just a man with a microphone. It is 1,000 men and women performing tasks without which your receiver would be just a silent piece of furniture. Yes, radio is people. Everyone from the man who tells you who's in Studio 8H to the men who make a living slamming doors and breaking dishes. Radio is also the anonymous standby pianist who on a moment's notice must fill an emergency silence with music. And it's the director, the producer, and the composer, too. People whose voices are never heard on the air, but who have made NBC's music department the finest in the radio industry. A mass of specialized detail goes into the preparation of a musical program. Every selection must first be investigated for clearance and performance rights. When the numbers have been cleared for broadcast, some are turned over to the composing staff and special arrangements are prepared. The balance of the program may come from orchestrations on file at NBC, the largest and most complete working music library in the world, containing everything from swing to symphony. Rehearsal for the Fred Waring Show, and the talent of the singer is deftly woven into the pattern of the program. It takes many hours of patient practice to tailor the artistic and technical quality of every note transmitted to your loudspeaker. Rehearsing, revising, rewriting, time to the relentless sweep hand of the stopwatch, and finally, they're on the air.
Fred Waring and the Pennsylvanians broadcasting today from Radio City in New York. And here to greet you on this nice Thursday is your host, Fred Waring.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming.
NBC New York is also the eastern terminus of radio's most famous thoroughfare, Allen's Alley.
Tell me, Mr. Moody, what are your feelings about the radio?
I don't hold with furniture that talks.
Well, you have a radio.
No, I had one in the hen house.
Yeah?
One day, all the hen's nest would be empty.
Uh-huh.
Next day, every nest would have 2 eggs into it.
You mean?
The hens was listening to Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
Co-capital of world entertainment is NBC's Western radio city in Hollywood. The names they write in autograph books outside NBC Hollywood are those of the greatest stars in radio and the most in demand for advertising sponsorship.
Not late for a date, are you, Charlie?
I haven't got one.
Oh, that's too bad.
If you're not doing anything,
No, you don't.
I was afraid of that.
That's it?
Yeah. Well, isn't it an exact likeness? Hello, George.
I stood 3 hours.
Pork chops? I told you this morning we're having chicken for lunch.
No, sir, we have pork chops.
Rochester, we're having chicken.
Okay, but don't look for no wings.
Gotta hurry and pack. We'll travel light. It's the thing to do these days.
Where are the suitcases?
Right here in the hall closet.
The money that advertisers spend to sponsor these shows pays for other programs, too. Non-commercial broadcasts in the public service account for more than 40% of NBC's scheduled time. The network makes free time available for roundtable discussions and farm and home programs. It provides regular facilities, free and impartially, to the 3 major faiths. And it divides the air fairly and without cost, so that the voices of labor, management, and agriculture can all be heard. But neither network nor sponsors ultimately decide what you shall hear. To determine the most popular types of radio entertainment, NBC engages in constant research. By telephone.
Hello? This is the Program Rating Service. We are conducting a survey of radio listening. Were you listening to your radio just now? To what program were you listening, please?
By careful attendance to the wishes expressed in letters sent in by listeners all over the world. By carefully worked out scientific tests.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have invited you here to participate in testing a proposed radio program. We want you to register your approval or disapproval at various points in the program on those reaction sheets that you hold. As the light flashes on the screen, please let us know how you feel about the program by checking either good or fair or poor alongside the corresponding number on your reaction sheet.
And by direct contact.
A kind of a program you'd recommend for your child or your grandchildren. Amusing?
Amusing.
Interesting to the children.
Entertaining for them.
I think that was very nice for children, but I don't believe that a great many grown-ups would care to listen to it.
How did you feel? You've heard these older folks say it's a good program for youngsters. How do you feel being a youngster?
Well, it was boring at first, but then it got a little interesting as it went on in history.
All right, you feel perhaps the program
Childish.
a little childish.
That's right.
NBC's obligation to its listeners is founded on its basic respect for the American home. All material for the microphone is examined in the light of a zealously guarded code. The ordinary standards of good taste and public conscience incorporated into the network's program policy. For NBC knows that vigilance is the price that radio must pay for its stewardship of the air. It knows that responsibility is the first obligation of freedom. The freedom of every American to turn the switch on his radio and listen without a license to what he pleases when he pleases, and to pay no tribute for what he hears, was guaranteed by the Constitution more than 100 years before the first practical sputter was ever coaxed out of the electromagnetic wave. The freedom of the air in America is inalienable. To extend this American freedom into new and uncharted wavelengths, NBC in 1941 established the first commercial television station in the country, began immediately to expand it into a network, adding sight to sound, It opened an electronic window, rang up the magic curtain, and ushered you to the first row, to the best seat in the house, your own easy chair. Carved from the primitive rock crystal of yesterday's radio is the crystal ball of television, in which is visible a whole new era of communication. In one generation, voice and vision have transcended space. Science, engineering, and organization have harnessed the ratio between light and sound, so that radio or television, if you look behind your dial that is set at NBC, you will find that you are tuned in on today and focus on tomorrow.
Your NBC station is WXXX 000 on your dial.
So great. This would have been shown in a theater, most likely. I love films that kind of talk about that media technology. This next film is we're jumping way ahead to 25 years to the 70s, and this is part of that series, is A Career in Electronics Manufacturing for You. And this talks about all the jobs that are available to you in the electronics manufacturing field. Now, the sad irony, of course, is that many of these jobs disappeared when American companies started sending their manufacturing overseas to Japan and other Asian places. This has a great song, and I'm going to apologize for it getting stuck in your head, but not really. Enjoy.
What will you do? You can start answering that question now by getting to know what the career opportunities are out there in the world of work and which would suit you best. Let's take a look here at possibilities in one important industry, electronics manufacturing. Although it's one of the newest industries, the products manufactured touch almost every aspect of our lives. More than 30,000 different types of electronic products. Products that help us make decisions and process information. Electronic products that help us live longer, better, and more enjoyable. Electronic products that control processes in industry. Electronic products made by men and women working in the 5th largest manufacturing industry in the United States. Electronics manufacturing. An industry employing over 1 million people, of whom more than 40% are women. Could your special place in the world of work be in electronics manufacturing? This film will help you to decide. The heart of every electronic product is a circuit, a system that includes electron tubes, semiconductors, and other electronic devices which regulate, control, or direct the flow of small active particles of negative electricity, known as electrons, through the circuit to produce an image on a picture tube, to record sound on magnetic tape, to operate devices of many kinds in just about every field of endeavor, from astronomy to zoology. Some 3,500 companies manufacture electronic products in the United States. While plants are located in nearly every state, the heavy concentration is in California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. Their products are in 4 categories. Consumer products. Industrial and commercial products. Government products. Component products. About 50% of those working in this industry, 500,000 men and women, work in plant jobs in production, maintenance, transportation, and service. The other 500,000 are employed in engineering, scientific, administrative, sales, and clerical positions. Among plant workers, the largest group is made up of assemblers, some skilled, most semi-skilled. Some assembly work is done by following instructions on slides and tape recordings. Most end products and some components are assembled by hand, including some tiny components. But machines are used wherever practical. Most components are assembled by machine, even some miniaturized items, and machines are used on some assembly work on end products. Most assemblers are women. They are employed mainly as machine operators and hand assemblers of items made in large quantities. The industry employs male assemblers chiefly in experimental, model, and heavy assembly work. There are many other kinds of plant employees, including metal machining workers, machine operators, machinists, tool makers, die makers, and many in fabricating occupations, sheet metal workers, glass blowers, glass lathe operators, others who mold, fire, and glaze ceramic insulators, grid lathe operators, spot welders, coil winders, crystal grinders, and finishers. Among those in processing occupations are electroplaters and tinners who coat parts with metal, silk screen printers, others who treat parts to prevent corrosion, some who coat components with waxes, oils, plastics, sealers who fix the base and stem in the tube, exhaust the tube, and seal it. The electronics manufacturing industry employs many men and women in inspecting and testing. The products must be right. Inspection and testing begin on raw materials as they enter the plant and continue through the various stages of manufacture. Some finished products are test operated for a time before they're shipped. Maintenance workers are needed to keep manufacturing equipment in good working order. Many other workers are employed in handling and moving materials, then shipping. What about the other 500,000 workers in the industry? Those in professional, technical, and office-related positions. Better than 20% of them are engineers and scientists. Not surprising in an industry heavily engaged in the development of new concepts, products, and applications. Electrical or electronic engineers make up the largest group of engineers. Generally, they're employed in research and development, but also in production as test methods and quality control engineers, and as field engineers and sales engineers. Many mechanical engineers are needed in product development, tool and equipment design, and as plant engineers. Other kinds of engineers have important roles in the industry too. Physicists make up the largest group of scientists in electronics manufacturing. Some of their work is in the area of micro-miniaturization, smaller than small. Other scientists in the industry include chemists and metallurgists. Mathematicians and statisticians work with engineers and scientists on complex problems. The industry employs industrial designers and many technicians. Most of them assist engineers and scientists. Technicians of various kinds. Electronics technicians, draftsmen, engineering aides, laboratory technicians, mathematical assistants. Technical writers and illustrators prepare training and technical manuals, catalogs, product literature, project reports, and proposals. 1/4 of the employees in the electronics manufacturing industry work in administrative or clerical occupations. In administrative jobs, in purchasing, in sales, in personnel, in advertising, in market research. In clerical jobs as clerks, secretaries, stenographers, typists, business machine operators, operators of computers and auxiliary equipment. While it would certainly help, you don't need training in electronics to get a beginning plant job in the industry. But completion of high school is increasingly required, and the quality of your school record and how you get along with people can be a factor. So can your skills and aptitudes. New plant workers are usually trained on the job for a short period. Assemblers, testers, and inspectors need good vision, color perception, manual dexterity, and patience. Promotion is usually from within. Testers and assemblers, for example, may advance to technician after developing necessary skills and taking courses in company classes, night school, junior college, or technical school. Many tool makers, die makers, and machinists and electricians and other craftsmen in the industry learn their trade in a 4 or 5 year apprenticeship. Some wisely got an early start by taking courses in their vocational school. Beginning jobs in engineering are usually filled by recent graduates of engineering colleges. Many mathematicians, physicists, and other scientists in the industry have advanced college degrees. Most electronics technicians have attended a public, private, or armed forces technical school. Some got their training in a 3- or 4-year apprenticeship. High school grads who have had math and science courses are preferred for apprenticeships. Electronics technicians need good color vision, manual dexterity, and eye-hand coordination. Laboratory technicians, engineering and scientific aides, and mathematical assistants frequently have had a year or more of college. In other cases, they are workers upgraded from lower-ranked assistant jobs. Draftsmen usually prepare at a trade or technical school. Technical writers must have a flair for writing and usually some technical training. For clerical jobs, a minimum of high school and basic office skills is required. Earnings of production workers vary by type of product manufactured and by their skill level, experience, length of service, and amount of overtime, and the geographic location. For specific information on earnings in your area or some other in which you'd like to work, well, you can get that at the local office of your state employment service. Employee benefits programs are generally good in the electronics manufacturing industry. Many workers are covered by labor management agreements. Tens of thousands of jobs will open up annually as employees retire or leave the industry in some other way. Additionally, a moderate growth in total employment is expected. Most plants are relatively new and located in suburban and semi-rural areas, are usually well lighted, clean, air-conditioned, and quiet. The frequency and severity of industrial accidents are far below the average in manufacturing as a whole. You may see yourself in one or more occupations in electronics manufacturing. It may occur to you to aim for an entering job with the purpose of acquiring new skills and moving up into indicated areas later. But before you decide, you'll want to learn about all the other occupations and industries. You'll want to see the other titles related to this film in the library of 40 career counseling films. Dig into occupational information on your own. Talk about possible careers with your teachers, school counselor, your parents, the people in your state employment service office. They can give you all sorts of information about jobs in your community and further afield. Get to know the whole spectrum of the world of work. Then, with the help of your counselor, from all the career areas you like and are suited for, make your choice of the just right career for you. Move on. Get all the additional information you can. Plan with your counselor the education and training you will need. Start getting ready as early as possible while still in school, working on your study program. Exploring your career field part-time if possible. The time you spend now may be the best investment you will ever make. An investment in the challenging, rewarding, made-for-you place in the world of work.
What you gonna do when the time comes and you have to earn your way? What you gonna do when the time comes and you have to earn your pay? What will you do when you're finally on your own? What will you do when you're finally on your own?
What will you really do?
When you're finally on your own?
All right. Yeah. So I have other films in that series, which I have shown, and it's a lot of fun. Finally, we're going to wrap it up with a cartoon, another cartoon. We start with one cartoon and we end with a cartoon. And this was actually Paul Terry, who did Terry Toons, who did Heckle and Jekyll and Deputy Dog and a bunch of really not so great TV cartoons. But this, and Mighty Mouse too. So this is early Paul Terry. This is Radio Girl. Enjoy.
In a big black hat, and who's the man who is round and fat? Who's the man you are looking at? His name is Barker Bill.
Good morning, everybody. The setting up exercises. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now up, down, up, down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I ask you? Buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open your windows and throw out your chest. Up, down, up, down. Now up, down, down, down. Let us know how you're enjoying this program. Thank you.
I want a boy like you, dear. Love a girl like me. And perhaps when you make good, why we'll get married and raise a family. Oh, honey, when will that be?
Radio girl I've never met. I am in love with you. Are you tall? Are you small? I do not know, but my heart is with you wherever you go. Radio girl, each night I hear and thrill to your singing divine. Just a voice on the air that has taught me to care. Radio girl of
I love that style of animation because everybody has like what's called the rubber hose. Everybody has the rubber hose arms, and there's always some sort of presentation. There's some sort of conflict where everybody rallies together and there's a resolution. So Radio Girl. And I have a lot of films from that collection. They were kind of bundled together onto these compilation reels that were shown, syndicated, called the Barker Bill cartoon show. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you like what you saw, you can buy us coffee. Even though we're not in the studio, we drink coffee. It is my drug of choice. So buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks is one way to do it. You can also visit avgeeks.com and see other shows that we have online and DVDs that we have for sale. And you can also tell the world that you like AV Geeks by hitting the like button, thumbs up, subscribe, notifications, blah, blah, blah. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And we will see you again, I think, on Monday, which I think will also be a pre-recorded show, but it'll be brand new stuff. So hope to see you then. Thanks, everybody. Take care.